welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore, and it is Tuesday, July the 21st, 2020. Look, this is very aggravating. You just heard from Stuart Hosey. He is the Scottish National Party MP who is part of the UK Intelligence and Security Committee. He was, and you heard him there, at a press conference today, talking about the Russia report that was finally released today on the UK government and Russian interference in the 2014 Scottish independence referendum, and the UK government looking the other way as Russia was doing whatever it chose to do within the UK. My thoughts on that and some excerpts from the Russia report released today, 9 months later than they should have been released, in just a moment. Welcome back. I have to say that I am really trying to keep it together here today, because the United Kingdom, my native birthplace, my native country, specifically the United Kingdom government, under David Cameron mostly, and partially also under Theresa May, the Tories, have absolutely subverted and helped to destroy whatever infrastructure the United Kingdom has, just like here in the United States with Donald Trump and the Republicans. You are having these kinds of either tyrannical or authoritarian or autocratic or dictatorial or subvertive movements being made by people in governments that are supposed to safeguard the government, but not only the government and its apparatus, but also the country and the infrastructure of the country. You have now a Russia report that was released today in the United Kingdom, a report that Boris Johnson of the Tories sat on for 9 months. Boris Johnson was supposed to have that report released today, released back in October of last year, 2019. The Intelligence and Security Committee had finished that report then, and it was scheduled for release then, October of 2019. Boris Johnson, of course, in the middle of an election campaign for the December 2019 general election in the UK, said, oh no, we're not releasing it. We're not releasing the Russia report, because we wouldn't want the explosive revelations in it to get in the way of my ambition to have the Tories win complete and utter control of the UK government. We just wouldn't want to have that be interfered with. We wouldn't want that to be put in any kind of jeopardy whatsoever. And as it was, and I talked about this a couple of episodes ago or so, as it was, the UK saw a Conservative Party landslide. The Tories swept into power last December. And they had a whopping majority. I mean, it was something like 85 seats. The Labour Party got absolutely cleaned out. They are still the largest opposition party, political party in the United Kingdom, but they are way behind the curve and Boris Johnson and the Tories absolutely handed Labour its worst defeat since 1935 in a general election. And I told you recently in one of these episodes I have done that Jeremy Corbyn, during the campaign, had held up a report, some kind of document. It was it was more than 55 pages that were released, more than the 55 pages that were released today. But he held up a document during the campaign, either in October or September, maybe October, waving it around. May have been in November of last year, but whichever month it was, one of those last 3 months of last year, he was waving a document around saying, here, look, 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 the Russians are interfering with this election. They are interfering. They've been interfering with Brexit. They've been interfering with this, that, the other. And it was dismissed. The media reported it, but then the next day they moved on to another story. The news media was not really that interested. And the Tories certainly were not interested. And now, turns out that Jeremy Corbyn was absolutely correct. 9 months later, we find out that this report, among other things, said that the UK government badly underestimated the threat from Moscow, from Russia. They absolutely bungled it with Putin. And I just don't understand, even with this report that the ISC, Intelligence and Security Committee in the UK government has been released after 9 months. I don't understand why it's even bungled. This was not a bungling. The UK government had known under David Cameron, and David Cameron was in power up until around July of 2016, when he was the one that facilitated all of this, saying that, oh, we should have a referendum to make sure that, because, Brexit's not going to succeed here. It's absurd. Okay, you want me to do it? Okay, I'll do it. I'll call your bluff and I'll have us go through this nightmare of a referendum for Brexit, because I just think it's absolute rubbish. And what happened? You know what happened. June 23rd or 24th, the results had come in. The election was on June 23rd, 2016. The Brexit referendum was June 23rd, 2016, and the next morning you had Nigel Farage crowing about this is Independence Day. What Independence Day was it? It was the liberation of monies. It was the selfishness and self-interest of a small group of people. The Nigel Farages of the world, the Boris Johnsons of the world, the Aaron Bankses of the world, and many, many others. Well, it's a small group, but still a small enough group to be large enough to identify. This was all about self-interest. Nigel Farage freely admitted that Brexit, quote, was never going to solve any of our domestic problems, end quote. That's what Nigel Farage said, I believe, in 2015 or 16, or maybe 17. David Cameron knew that, in my view, he knew that there was Russian interference. He certainly knew that for years, for the last 5 or 6 years at the minimum, that Russia had been interfering and meddling, or had been looking to interfere and meddle in elections across Europe, certainly across Western Europe, and in other areas. And he wanted to do this, he and the Russian officials wanted to do this because they wanted to cause chaos. They wanted to destabilize governments, delegitimize governments, in order to gain an increased foothold and standing in the world community, to have countries rally around Russia, because when you've got the legitimacy of the United Kingdom, of France, of Germany, and certainly of the United States in question, then who do you rally around? If you are a government or a country that looks at those other countries that are now a little bit more destabilized with a bit of suspicion, which power do you look to protect your interests? Well, there's a big one over here. There's Russia and there's China. Vladimir Putin wants relevance on the big stage. He is a dictator. He's president for life, just like Xi is. I believe Orban in Hungary as well. They've made themselves president for life. Vladimir Putin certainly has. He's not going anywhere, folks. And for David Cameron and the Tories, because the Tories have been running the UK government since 2010. It's been 10 years for David Cameron and the Tories to be in power and not realize and quote unquote badly underestimate interference from Moscow. This isn't a case of them bungling it or underestimating. This is a case, in my view, of David Cameron, Theresa May, and the Tory government completely opening the door to the whole shop, while Russian intelligence, Russian officials, and Putin were able to literally do cash and carry destabilization of the UK government and its electoral processes. The 2014 Scotland independence referendum was interfered with, according to this Russia report that was released today by the ISC. Dominic Raab, and I told you about this the other day, Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary of the UK government under Boris Johnson, said last week that there was significant and substantial evidence that Russia interfered with last year's election, the general election in December of 2019 that I was telling you about, that I was telling you that Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party, then the Labour leader, was waving around paper saying that the UK government had interfered, the Russian government and the Russians had interfered with the UK government and was interfering with this election. I mean, during the election campaign, Jeremy Corbyn is waving around this thick report. Whatever it was 200, 300, whatever pages. And the media basically covered it for 5 minutes, and then the next day it was gone. This is explosive stuff today. Christopher Wiley, who has written a book about all of this, and someone who was integrally involved regarding around Facebook and Cambridge Analytica specifically, was part of that whole Cambridge Analytica situation, where Cambridge Analytica absolutely have interfered with the Brexit referendum. There's no question they manipulated that in 2016. Christopher Wiley has written a big book, a whole book on it. His last name, Wylie. And Christopher Wiley tweeted today at Chris in Silico, Silico. Chris in Silico, which I guess is Silicon Valley. I know that's where he's situated now. But the point is, this is his tweet from today. Christopher Wiley on Twitter saying, I gave MI5, that's the equivalent, that's the British equivalent of the CIA. I gave MI5 direct correspondence between Russian embassy officials and senior Brexit campaigners, but nothing happened. There was huge interest from US agencies about what Russian officials were doing in the referendum. That's Brexit he's referring to. But UK agencies didn't want to know. This was a full abdication of duty and responsibility to the security and infrastructure of UK elections and integrity. And the UK government under David Cameron and under also Theresa May, but particularly David Cameron, he is the one that has to really be scrutinized here. David Cameron absolutely turned around and looked the other way and allowed Russia to do whatever the heck it wanted to. All of these people, particularly these racists in England who sit up there and go, oh, Londonistan, oh, the Muslims, they're taking over. All that racist, Islamophobic crap that they spew, these white racists spew. Where are they now on Russia? On a big freaking report, 55-page freaking report, talking about Russia interfering in the United Kingdom referendum, the Scottish referendum, and perhaps interfering in the Brexit referendum. I'm sure they probably did. I mean, come on. Cambridge Analytica has told you that there was all kinds of messaging coming out of Russia. You just heard me say, I read it to you. Christopher Wiley, who was involved intimately with Cambridge Analytica, was part of the whole thing. Gave MI5, that's Britain's top secret service spy agency, direct actual correspondence between Russian embassy officials and senior Brexit campaigners. I'm sure those were people like Aaron Banks, Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, and others, Nigel Farage. He gave that information to MI5 and they didn't care. They didn't care. I'm really ticked off about this. Where are all of those white racists now? Shouldn't they be angry at Boris Johnson? Shouldn't they be angry at Michael Gove and David Cameron? Shouldn't they be angry and upset that the Tory government in the UK turned a blind eye and a deaf ear? Shouldn't they be upset and angry at the Russian officials who absolutely have carte blanche in the UK now and have for several years? Based on what we've been reading in this report, which I have tweeted, you've got to go read that report. It's not 448 pages. You don't have to worry about that. It's not the Mueller report here. It's 55 easy to read pages of this UK report put out today, 9 months later than it should have been, by the ISC, the Intelligence and Security Committee. Where are these racists who are screaming about Muslims and lying about them and spreading hate about them? Where are they? I mean, this report talks about Russian money laundering in London and using London as an easy point of access, where they're actually using London as a laundromat for their laundering money operations. This kind of criminality, where are these racists screaming about that? This isn't Londonistan. London is not Londonistan. London is Londongrad. And the hypocrisy of these people who are screaming about, oh, they're invading our country, keep Britain white, and all this racist garbage, say nothing at all about the Russians who are actually coming in, specifically Russian officials, not every Russian person, but Russian officials with power, government officials from Russia and Putin are destabilizing the government and destabilizing the UK electoral processes. And where are these racists now? Crickets. The hypocrisy and the silence of these people is an absolute disgrace. You've had people like Carol Cadwalader for years, a very good journalist in the UK, writes for The Guardian, has done excellent work. Her hard work for years on this. And she was telling you about this, and what did you do? You insulted her. You called her names. You gave her death threats. You tried to discredit her. She's more than vindicated. She's been talking about this for years. There's even a documentary about this called The Great Hack. This is absolutely disgraceful. I'm telling you right now. And the only problem is here is that this Tory government has 4 years more in power in the UK. And what I'm worried about is the short memory of the UK voter. Scotland must be furious too. As part of the UK, it has raised so much opposition to this Brexit. And the UK now, the UK government doesn't want to look now at whether or not the Russians interfered with Brexit, the Brexit referendum. On top of sitting on a report for 9 months, Boris Johnson and the Tories don't want to look at whether or not Russian officials interfered with their process and their election process and the referendum, in the Brexit referendum of 2016. You abdicate your responsibility to your country? That is not patriotism. That's cowardice, and quite frankly, it's treason. That's a word that should be used when describing this. These folks completely have turned the shop over to a foreign entity. And you got racists in the UK sitting down and saying nothing, which makes them a bunch of hypocrites at best and traitors. How are you going to sit there screaming at Muslims, saying racist things about them and other people in the United Kingdom, and you're going to be absolutely silent when an actual menace has come into your country laundering money in London like it's a candy store, a sweet shop? This is appalling. Appalling. The UK government has allowed itself, under the Tories, to absolutely be a poodle government. Whether it was with Tony Blair, with George W. Bush telling him what to do, with Iraq, whether it's David Cameron absolutely capitulating to all of this and needlessly bringing up a Brexit referendum vote that never ever had to happen in the first place, and he's off peddling books. Whether it's Theresa May and the way that Trump had absolutely crapped all over what she was trying to do. And don't get me wrong, Theresa May has got some blame here too. But she had no chance. She had absolutely no chance because there was an agenda bigger than her. She was a Remainer trying to get a Brexit deal through. That was never going to work the way she wanted it to. Brexit, you had Brexiteers in the Tory party and some Brexiteers that were also Labour who absolutely wanted what they got. And the UK still hasn't left the EU properly. Not yet, not even close. This is really disgraceful. There is so much more to say about all of this. But I think enough has been said here. Go and read that report. I've tweeted it out at the popcorn, REEL. 55-page report. The cowardliness of government officials in the UK under the Tories. The Tories are cowards and hypocrites. And I only hope that people don't forget this. But you know what? Just like they've already forgot Dominic Cummings and breaking the lockdown rules, and Dominic Cummings was a major player in all of this too, by the way, regarding this whole Russia effort. A major player in Brexit, specifically, I'll say that, in the referendum he was. I don't know about Russia, but it wouldn't shock me. Just like Dominic Cummings has already been, his shenanigans have been forgotten by many, I think, UK voters. I think this is going to be completely forgotten in another month. A month from now, many people in the UK, and there'll be some that don't. Carol Cadwalladr won't forget it. She won't forget. But I guarantee you there's going to be many people in England particularly who are going to completely have forgotten about this in another month. And that is sad. Very sad indeed. I'm Omar Moore. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Politicrat.